Desire is selfish! At least most of the time.
So what is desire? Desire is a strong feeling of wanting to have something or wishing for something to happen. Desire has been a part of humanity forever. In fact, it's impossible to be human without a desire for something. People feel a desire for many different things. For example,
food, money, clothes, and even sexual desires. Desire can be perceived as both a good and a bad thing. In a good way, it pushes people to get what they want. In a bad way, it makes people become selfish, which is how it is perceived in the Odyssey. In our episode of the Odyssey, Circe warned Odysseus about many perils that lay on his route. The island of the Sirens was one of them. The Sirens are beautiful bird-like creatures whose sweet songs lure sailors passing by to a certain death. All who hear their songs have their ships hit against the rocks and are devoured. No sailor has ever survived the lure of the Sirens. Luckily, Circe knew that if the sailors put beeswax in their ears, then they wouldn't hear the song and therefore wouldn't fall into the death trap.
One of Odysseus' most pronounced character traits is his curiosity, and so out of curiosity he decided to hear what the Sirens would sing to him. So on Circe's advice, he told his men to tie him firmly to the mast while they passed by the island, and to only tighten the ropes once he begged for release. As the ship passed by the island, Odysseus got to hear their song. He screamed for release and begged his men to untie him. The men couldn't hear the song because of the beeswax in their ears. Anyways, the men only tightened the ropes and rowed past the island, and for once in Odysseus' journey there was no incident. The desire to be with the Sirens was so powerful that when his men rowed past the island, Odysseus was in fact full of tears. He wanted to be released so he could go to them, even though he knew that they were dangerous creatures.
After Odysseus heard the beautiful song of the Sirens, he lacked all self-restraint and begged his sailors to untie him. He was completely lethargic except for the desire he felt to be with them and listen to more of their song. Odysseus was obviously fully aware that the point of the song was to lure sailors to their deaths, but he overlooked that. If he went to their island, he would have given everything up, never returned home, and even died because of his own personal desire. Even after long years of physical and mental exhaustion of trying to return home, yet constantly failing, the desire he felt was so powerful that he managed to overlook everything that has ever mattered to him in the many past years of his life. This desire caused him to be selfish. If he had fulfilled this desire, not only would he have let his wife and son down, who waited for him in misery for more than a decade, but as the captain of his crew, he would have also let his whole crew down, who have fought by his side for years and have been through so much with him.
Although we will be comparing two fictional stories, selfishness and desire are two very evident characteristics still present in the modern day. In the modern day, people are driven by their desire for money, and this causes them to be selfish when it comes to businesses, jobs, and opportunities. The Lorax is a movie that's set in the future where selfishness and desire for money have overlapped and created a world where even oxygen is scarce.
The Onsley was a young man who dreamed of starting his own business of selling thneeds, an invention of his. These thneeds involved raw material from the truffula trees.
By cutting down the first tree, he summoned the Lorax, a magical creature that speaks for the trees. The Lorax warned the Onster about the consequences of cutting down all the trees, but the Onster ignored him and continued to cut down many more trees. Every day he cut down more than the previous one. Eventually, his small shop turned into a huge business with a big factory, and the Onster became a very rich man, drunk with power and desire for more money. The consequences of cutting down the trees began presenting themselves, yet the Onster ignored them. Even when all the animals were forced to leave their habitats, he continued to ignore the Lorax's warning. After a while, he eventually cut down all the trees and ruined the environment. There were no animals left, pure oxygen was scarce, and yet he wasn't happier than he was in the beginning. He was selfish and now he suffered the consequences.
Both Odysseus and the Onster were driven by a desire. Odysseus wanted to be with the Sirens, which is more of a sexual desire, while the Onster wanted to have more money. Even though both of these desires made them forget about important things, and this made them selfish. Money made the Onster forget that the environment he was ruining and the trees he was cutting down was actually home to many animals, which is why he was selfish, because he only thought of himself and not the animals and their habitat. Even after the Lorax warned him about the consequences, the Onster was still drunk with power, greed, and desire, and all he cared about was money. The Song of the Sirens made Odysseus forget about his more important desire for home and family. Odysseus was selfish in a way that he was willing to let everyone down if he got untied from the mast. He was willing to let his wife and son down who have been desperately waiting for him in Ithaca for years, and he was willing to let his entire crew down who have been with him through so much and desperately want to return home with the help of their captain. He was basically putting his selfish desire before the desires of everyone he has ever cared about or has ever cared about. The only difference with the episode and the movie is that since Odysseus was tied to the mast and he had selfish thoughts, he didn't actually do anything selfish. So in other words, there wasn't a consequence to Odysseus' selfishness, yet the monster faced the consequence of his selfishness, which was living in isolation and in regret of all the mistakes he had done.
Desire is selfish, at least most of the time. Desire and selfishness are two prominent characteristics in human nature. Desire has the ability to control a person, to make the person forget his reasoning and make that person selfish. This is the selfish nature of desire, and this is portrayed in many places around us. Whether it is a book, a movie, or a real-life situation, the selfish nature of desire is strong and almost inevitable. At times it is even consequential, and you can see this in the Odyssey and the Lorax.